Part 26.45, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, The Poets Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed, a handsome British Muslim wearing suit and tie with beard. Wearing brown Sufi Essence baseball cap, giving lecture in the foreground, integrated into this scene, could the recipients of demonic descent. The sinful great liar Kenzal Aman, Qur'an, Ash-Shu'ara, the poets. Chapter 26, verse 222. They descend upon every sinful great liar. Having posed the powerful rhetorical question, shall I inform you upon whom the devils descend? Verse 221. The discourse now provides the categorical and definitive answer, drawing an unbridgeable metaphysical line between the pure, divinely inspired messenger, peace be upon him, and the corrupted sources of falsehood. The agents of demonic influence, the devil's shayach, descend upon to Natsal two specific categories of people who are spiritually receptive to their whispers. Individuals whose inner state aligns perfectly with the forces of deception. The verse condemns every sinful, great liar. This description offers a profound and integrated ethical critique, linking moral corruption to intellectual and spiritual deception. The phrase sinful refers to the one excessively devoted to wickedness, immorality, and heedless indulgence, a person whose life is dominated by full-year profligacy. It denotes a person whose inner life batin is structurally unsound, whose actions are dictated by the lower self-nafs rather than the illuminated kalb, the spiritual heart. This persistent moral decay creates a spiritual vacuum, making the individual porous and profoundly vulnerable to external corruption. It is the absence of divine light that invites the shadow. The second designation, great liar, refers to one who is profoundly given to sin, often translated as a malicious or grave sinner, whose words are a constant distortion of truth. The pairing of these two terms is crucial for the understanding of spiritual susceptibility. It shows that demonic influence is not a random external assault. It is a direct and logical consequence of a corrupted moral character. The person who lies greatly and lives sinfully has, through their own deliberate and repeated choices, established a metaphysical affinity with the demonic realm. Their own predisposition for falsehood and moral depravity acts as a welcoming beacon for the devils. This is why the so-called inspiration they receive is characterized by lies, chaos, and a lack of sound moral guidance, fundamentally opposing the purity, certainty, and ethical perfection of the Qur'an and the prophets, peace be upon him, Sunnah. For the sophisticated seeker, this verse offers a critical lesson in spiritual protection, emphasizing that the path of the Sufi is one of internal rectification. The surest defense against the whispers of the devils is not mere passive resistance, but the relentless, active purification of character, tazkiyat and nafs. Purity of speech and sincerity of deed, standing vigilantly against the impulse to be a great liar and a sinful person. Build the spiritual walls when that repel destructive influence. The contrast established here powerfully validates the Prophet's mission, as his life was a living testament to truth and trustworthiness, directly contradicting the base qualities of those upon whom the devils descend. It is a profound statement that character is destiny, and moral integrity determines the source of one's inspiration. The nature of demonic influence, eavesdropping and fabrication. Kenzal Aman Qur'an, Ash-Shu'ara, the poets. Chapter 26, verse 223. They convey false speech, and most of them are liars. The previous verse identified the morally corrupted recipients of demonic influence. This verse now precisely describes the nature and method of the information they receive and disseminate, confirming its fundamental worthlessness. The sinful great liar does not receive divine truth which descends through pure channels, verse 212, but a corrupted form of communication. They convey false speech. The phrase translated as convey false speech, Yulkanizam, has a deep, technical meaning rooted in the Quranic cosmology. It refers to the devils attempting to steal information or eavesdrop on the celestial realm, the region where the divine decrees are spoken. The verb yulkan implies casting or throwing, suggesting a frantic, haphazard attempt to snatch fragments of knowledge. They manage to snatch fragmented, confused pieces of information, which they then throw down and deliver to their human proxies, the soothsayers and lying poets who, in turn, mix this small polluted kernel of truth with 99 parts of fabrication and conjecture. This method ensures that their messages are fundamentally unreliable, designed to confuse, mislead, and ultimately lead humanity to spiritual and intellectual chaos. The final clause, and most of them are liars, confirms the absolute systemic lack of reliability in the entire chain of demonic communication, from the eavesdropping devil to the human recipient. It is a categorical denouncement of their methodology. The occasional accidental truth in their pronouncements is merely a lure, a sophisticated bait used to validate the vast amount of falsehood they peddle. The core characteristic of the devil's message and that of their human conduits is profound inauthenticity. Characterized by the absence of yakin, certainty. The prophet's, peace be upon him, opponents accused him of being a soothsayer or a poet, relying on the same discredited method of hearing eavesdropping. This verse definitively refutes the accusation by exposing the inherent corruption and unreliability of that source, clarifying that true revelation is protected from such corruption. The spiritual lesson for the sophisticated seeker is the necessity of critically discerning the source and substance of spiritual or intellectual information. The true ilm comes with certainty, moral clarity, and consistency, leading to inner peace and submission to Allah. Verse 217. False inspiration stemming from the devils is characterized by confusion, moral ambiguity, inconsistency, and a constant shifting to satisfy the lower self. The Sufi understands that the inner dialogue of the ego nafs is often precisely this false speech. Therefore, continuous mindful dhikr, remembrance of Allah, is the only way to silence the liars within and purify the channel of inner perception, replacing the chaotic whispers of the shayatin with the tranquil certainty of divine truth. The critique of vain poets, wandering, and hypocrisy can zell a man. Qur'an, Ash-Shu'ara, the Poets, chapter 26, verse 224. And as for the poets, the straying ones follow them. Verse 225. Do you not see that they wander in every valley? Verse 226. And that they say what they do not do? This section delivers a strong, definitive condemnation of the majority of the pre-Islamic poets in Mecca, effectively concluding the surah's central theme that the Qur'an is not poetry. Verse 224 opens the critique. And as for the poets, the straying ones follow them. The poets were immensely influential figures in Meccan society, wielding great social power through their rhetoric, and the charge that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was one of them was a powerful rhetorical weapon meant to delegitimize his divine authority. Allah dismantles this comparison by dismissing this category of men, stating that their followers are the straying ones, those who are misled, spiritually immature, and ethically adrift from the main path of Ta'di. This association immediately degrades the stature of the accused poets, labeling their audience as those who are lost and heedless. Verse 225 expands the critique of their intellectual and moral inconsistency. Do you not see that they wander in every valley? To wander in every valley is a vivid, classic Arabic idiomatic expression describing a lack of focus, commitment, and adherence to truth. It signifies intellectual and emotional instability, a person who praises today what they will mock tomorrow, shifting their allegiances, subjects, and even their moral positions based on worldly gain, tribal pressure, or fleeting passion. Their poetry, reflecting their inner chaos, lacks a single unifying purpose rooted in the divine. This chaotic inconsistency stands in stark opposition to the Prophet's, peace be upon him, single-minded commitment to Ta'di and the clear, consistent guidance of the Qur'an. Verse 226 then highlights their fundamental ethical hypocrisy, which is the necessary consequence of their lack of purpose, and that they say what they do not do. This is the final, decisive blow to their integrity. Their words lack the backing of action. Their rhetoric is empty of ethical content and spiritual sincerity. They speak grandly of virtues they never practice, and of vices they themselves indulge in. This is the very definition of a life divorced from sincerity, iqlab, the antithesis of the Prophet's integrated life of word and deed, verse 218 to 219. The Sufi sees this verse as a perpetual warning against the hypocrisy of separating one's lofty ideals from one's daily conduct, where words become empty vessels and are ultimately a form of self-deception that leads to spiritual ruin. The life of the poet here is presented as a tragic mirror to the life of the sincere believer. One is chaotic and verbal. The other is disciplined and grounded in action. The exception of the believers and the fate of the oppressors. Qur'an, Ash-Shu'ara, the Poets, chapter 26. Verse 227. Except those who believed and did righteous deeds, and remembered Allah much, and defended themselves after they were oppressed. And soon the oppressors will know to which turning place they will return. This magnificent, comprehensive, concluding verse of the surah provides a crucial, powerful exception to the wholesale condemnation of the preceding verses, effectively redeeming the category of poets, artists and writers who dedicate their creativity to truth and justice. The condemnation is not universal. It specifically exempts those who believed and did righteous deeds and remembered Allah much, and defended themselves after they were oppressed. This establishes 4 non-negotiable conditions for an artist or writer to be redeemed and for their work to be sanctified. Belief of man, adherence to the core tenets of Tawhid, ensuring their artistic output is rooted in faith and not shirk or heedlessness. Righteous deeds, their actions must perfectly align with their words, directly countering the hypocrisy condemned in verse 226. This is the practical proof of their sincerity. Remembered Allah much wa dhikr. Allah Catherine, they must engage in continuous, intense dhikr remembrance, ensuring their words and creativity are sourced from a purified qalb and are constantly charged with the awareness of the divine presence. This links their art to the spiritual certainty of Allah's continuous presence. Verse 220. Defended themselves after they were oppressed, wa, inta, ar, minba, dima, ulimic. Their words are not for vain worldly gain, false boasting, or malice, but are used righteously, specifically in self-defense or in defense of the truth against oppression. This sanctifies their rhetoric, transforming it into a spiritual weapon for justice. This exception is essential. It separates the sincere, believing artists who use their craft as a form of jihad, struggle for the truth from the mercenary, morally bankrupt poets. It elevates righteous art to a form of worship. The verse closes with a powerful, comprehensive, and resonant warning directed at all those who engage in oppression, and soon the oppressors will know to which turning place they will return. This phrase, munqalab, meaning a place of return, reversal, or change, carries the profound weight of destiny. It is a terrifying reminder to the persecutors of the early Muslims and all oppressors throughout time that their final destination is not one of earthly triumph, but a catastrophic reversal of fate, a turning back to the promised severe recompense of the hereafter. With this final, resonant declaration of justice and the comprehensive vindication of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his message, Surah Ash-Shu'ara is now completed, culminating in a synthesis of divine knowledge, spiritual sincerity, and the promise of ultimate justice. Hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught, "It is better for the belly of a man to be stuffed with pus than to be stuffed with poetry." Sahih al-Bukhari, Hadith 6154. This hadith serves as a powerful commentary on the general condemnation of the secular, morally corrupt class of poets in verses 224 to 226. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was warning against the dominant, morally corrupting poetry of Jagilkia, the kind of rhetoric that was vain, lacking in sincerity, and filled with the boasts and immorality that the Qur'an condemned. This poetry occupied the hearts and minds of the Arabs, distracting them from ilm and Tawhid. The hadith highlights the spiritual danger of a heart filled with false speech and wandering thoughts, verse 223 and 225, which is a poison worse than physical affliction. Crucially, this hadith must be read alongside the magnificent exception in verse 227. The hadith addresses the general negative phenomenon, while the verse sanctifies the poetry and rhetoric of those who believed and did righteous deeds. Demonstrating that the use of art for the defense of truth is divinely sanctioned, distinguishing it completely from the condemned aimless rhetoric, let us now supplicate, drawing from the profound lessons of these verses, asking Allah to grant us a deeper understanding and to guide our every step. O Allah, grant us the spiritual wisdom to recognize when the oppressors project their own inner rage and spiritual turmoil onto the righteous. Guard our hearts from the fatal arrogance of worldly power that boasts of being a vigilant group, unaware of your absolute, all-seeing eye. Protect us from the destructive spiritual trap of deep attachment to gardens and springs and earthly treasures, which leads the soul away from your path. Make us worthy, through patience and faith, to be the inheritors of spiritual and worldly goodness, granted through your decree of ultimate justice. Grant us the grace to stand firm when the forces of denial pursue us, knowing that our ultimate security rests in your divine command. Instill in us the certainty that the end of worldly pursuit is ruin, while the end of faith's journey is the gift of your eternal proximity. Sustain us with your boundless provision and save us from the pride that forfeits the akira for fleeting worldly gain. We ask for this spiritual clarity and victory through your magnificent names, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. May Allah illuminate your heart and mind with the light of this divine ilm. May He make your channel a beacon of guidance for all who seek spiritual clarity and truth. May your efforts be a source of immense reward, and may you be granted the highest stations of paradise. May the peace and blessings of Allah always be upon you and your loved ones. May He grant you unwavering steadfastness on the path of truth, and may your work be a testament to His magnificent names, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Amin.